want to thank all of you for your interest. This is a topic that I'm passionate about. I'd just like to give a shout out here to our colleague, Alexandra Lutz, who's with the University of Nevada, Reno. She's also on the here, and she was an excellent resource for me and reviewer that helped move this project along. So I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes or a few minutes just going over a little bit about what the goals are that we, John and Alex and I, built together as what we intended to try to help deliver to you all, and hope that it's useful. And then I'm just going to take one of the modules and open it up and show a little bit about how that's organized and ways that different people, you know, whether at your colleges can use this, whether you're an extension person or instructor person. So I'm gonna share my screen to get. All right, so just, there we go. So the theme, the overall theme that pulls all this together is water resources in a warming world. So, and we developed a curriculum and resource materials modules that can be delivered fully online through a hybrid delivery format or in a live classroom. So that was our intent. You know, we believe this is ready to go, that it can be up and running at your site immediately. Another goal was to have develop something that's flexible. I'm going to go into each of these in a little bit more detail about how we approach that. Adaptable to multiple audiences, not necessarily first-year community college students, but upper level undergraduates, as well as community groups, community audiences. Wanted to make sure that folks understood that there's available public data that is really a great teaching tool for at the community college level. And I will say, when I was launching my career, I knew all the way through getting my education, I wanted to get out into doing problem solving in the real world. And at that time, my academic training did not prepare me for how to go about that. I was being prepared on how to be a student or an instructor, but not a permit writer or a environmental quality monitor. So I think we really tried hard to make sure this class delivers some of that content to the students and gives them practice with it. And definitely wanted to address how the climate crisis is affecting water in terms that were accessible and relevant to your students. So breaking down these goals. Okay, so you know, they're ready to go. The modules are here. John sent them to you. They're developed for a semester-long course, whether it can be just a lecture-based course or a science lab course. There are laboratory exercises for each of the modules. No textbook required, so nobody needs to put on the brakes to wait and order books. A syllabus with much of the content that you'll need to put it out there for your students on the first day has been drafted. There's some instructor notes about where you need to go in and adapt the syllabus. Each of the modules has options. Each one of them has more reading assignments, more assessment tools, more laboratory exercises than you'll be able to use. So pick and choose the ones that suit your audience. And every module has content that would be appropriate for different types of extension programs. We tried to make this flexible. This can be a standalone water resources in a warming world class. different modules could be used in other courses. There are modules that you could pull out and put into a introductory chemistry class, or environmental science, or earth science, statistics, technical writing class, and even Native American studies. So again, you know, talk to your colleagues about throughout the college and see if you want to co-teach this across multiple departments. There's, I know some community colleges require their students to take introductory English and then a writing intensive course. You could make this one writing intensive. You could also, there's multiple places in there where it's really would fit well with service learning activities. There's every module except maybe the first one has option for you to use select assessment methods or lab activities that are place-based. So you could make it an entirely place-based course, or you could include some place-based content. A lot of the activities or laboratory exercises could be a logical springboard for undergraduate research projects or extension special topics projects, and also springboards for other seminar classes that dive deeper into some of these topics. We try to make this adaptable for multiple audiences. It's, you know, primarily content for a college course, but there's, you know, modules or portions of modules can be used for extension programs across different age groups, people with different levels of comfort with scientific content, community conversations. There is content in here, or optional required reading. They're not all readings, but videos, audio recordings, readings. Most of the videos you have closed caption content. Some of them you can also download transcripts. So if that's an issue for some of your students, that some of those shortcuts are, or some of that material is accessible in different ways. And we really paid attention to trying to design this so that for those of you that have internet connectivity problems, you can use this material. You can select the pieces that don't require a lot of bandwidth. So you can get the content in PDF files. You don't have to go to the YouTube videos or whatever. So that it's hopefully can be delivered with all the constraints you have to, with online courses right now. We've relied heavily on using government and public data sets. Please note that all the URLs identified in the modules are current and will open for you right now, but as agencies reorganize things, those can change. So if you're using some of these modules or some of this content a year from now, you might want to check and make sure that that information is still at the same address. We've tapped into the major agency data sets that and agencies have a lot of educational content as well that is tied into these topics. And some of these exercises walk your students through how to drill down to find information for a local groundwater well or the local stream or lake or whatever. And there's one exercise that you may choose to have have in your particular class, or that has your students getting engaged in a crowdsourced data analysis project related, that's a climate study. So another piece of this is really giving undergraduates the opportunity to practice interpreting graphs, maps, and charts. And you as a instructor will be able to figure out, how much of your class time you need to devote to that in order to get your folks comfortable with this. The resources provided range from the very highly technical to more general content. Again, you'll pick and choose based upon your individual needs. And one of the points that Alex made early on is, let's take away some of the mystery of what's in a climate model. And so the particular module that's on climate modeling, we provide some different resources there that might help you and your students deconstruct what goes into these models and understand better about the forcing functions that really drive the outcomes. So, and then coming back to sort of my, baggage I carry around never really being trained as a undergraduate or graduate student on how to translate my classroom content to the workplace. There's a lot of opportunities here for your students to develop really practical and marketable skills. And, at the end of the semester, I think you'd be able to help them see how they could put every single one of these data points or these bullet points here onto their resume, just based upon moving through this class with you. So let me just move to show you, what I mean more specifically. I'm just going to do a hypothetical. Let's go through module 3, which in this case is called watersheds and water cycles. And if your students have already taken a class in environmental science or earth science and they know the fundamentals of the water cycle or the fundamentals of what's a watershed, then you can, you might be able to shortcut this. It's designed to cover two 90-minute class sessions in case you're kind of starting from scratch. So every module is that we've sent to you is kind of organized in this same way. There's a summary, there's and the goals, and those are just carried over from the syllabus. Every module at this front end has a highlighted pullout on showing where some tribe or TCU is taking action on climate and water resources in a way that's relevant to the content of this particular module. And so in this case, it's the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission, and this points to their climate change webpage. And quite honestly, it's you may want to not just assign this as for students to look at on their own time, but really build this into your presentation of this model, because there's a lot going on in this commission, and they actually on this webpage include content from the National Climate Change Assessment, which was introduced in module 2 of this class. So there's a nice tie-in there. So then each module has our recommendations for required readings, and here I've just chosen to go in and highlight for you that if your students already know what the water cycle is, you might want to skip this general assigned reading and instead go to the more detailed one. And again, you will pick and choose. There's not going to be time for them to do all of this, but the ones that I felt were the most comprehensive resources are always spelled out highlighted in the required readings. Supplemental content, that's more up to you. I just point out that here in this one, watersheds and water cycles, I've pulled from or pointed to the EPA's Watershed Academy website. I don't know if that's showing up there, but EPA has an online watershed training, watershed management training program, which is a great thing for extension agents to consider pulling together technical sessions to like continuing ed for tribal environmental staff. And you know, if you go through all the modules in EPA's Watershed Academy, you can get a certificate at the end and so forth. Here I've just pulled out the ones that are kind of intro to watershed or intro to watershed and water resources and climate change. So this gets, and one nice thing about these is you can download them as just PDF scripts. And for those of you with internet connectivity issues, you can get a relatively small sized file, or you can assign your students to do these online modules, take a screenshot of their grade on the quiz at the end as an assessment technique, if that works for you. So then there's, I should point out this first required or recommended reading is from an OpenStax textbook, which can also be downloaded. It can be read online or it can be downloaded as a PDF. So then the water, some of these supplemental contents like this first one here, this USGS Water Science School webpage, has content on it for different aged audiences. So there's things for college students as well as elementary students. And there's some nice downloadable posters of the water cycle, which again might be something that extension programs would like to put up in libraries or the community. And then there's a lot of these modules will have things of, again, I try to put extension, things that might be of interest to the general community. Like in this one, there's a film for that's related to a Native community in Alaska whose town is sinking because of climate change and melting permafrost, and they're having to move. So they're, climate refugees within our country, and it's not a particularly long film, but a great one for launching a discussion. Also, this audio recording from public radio about John Wesley Powell's, his recommendations back in the 19th century around organizing geopolitical boundaries in this country around by watershed rather than some other factors. And that one is actually a nice tie-in with the tribal, the Columbia River Intertribal Fisheries Commission, because that is multiple tribes within a watershed across different states that are working together and have joined together to work on their common interests related to protecting fishery resources in the Columbia. So at any rate, there's a lot of resources, and you're going to have to pick only a couple. There won't be time for all of it if you're trying to make a 10-module class. Every module that we've sent you has key vocabulary. You could organize that into quizzes. In this particular one, I've pointed you to the quiz that's on the EPA website, the review questions that are actually in the OpenStax textbook related to this chapter, as well as some place-based discussion questions that you could use for a discussion board or in class. It's also then optional assignment where you use the national map, which is basically USGS's national map, and you turn on the hydrologic and hydrographic data layers, and you look at stream order and zoom out to see where the stream closest to your campus is draining into which ocean or gulf. And so it gives the students an opportunity to practice using the national map, which will come up again multiple times in later modules. And so that's kind of the content of the module. And if you've got a lecture-based class, you pick and choose what works for you, and then you're done. If you're making this a lab class, this particular unit has 2 lab options. One is a scripted lesson developed by others about Darcy's Law, which is the foundation of modern hydrogeology, and certainly a very important issue, particularly for communities where your water supplies and irrigation water and so forth is groundwater. And then there's a different, and if you don't want to do Darcy's Law calculations, then there's another place-based lab activity where students find the data for a groundwater well close that you assign them. You know, it can be the one that's providing drinking water for your campus or something else that, you know, that is of interest, and they get information on how water level elevations change over time. So that gives them practice using the National Water Information website, which will come up again in later modules. It introduces them to that. It gives them practice in preparing a lab report, and this IMRAD method had been introduced in module 2, the IMRAD Introduction, Method, Results, and Discussion, and gives them practice doing that. Good technical writing for them. And also you may or may not choose to have them do some statistical analysis or graphing with Excel, and then you can get them going on using spreadsheet. And maybe you want to already download the data from National Water Information website and give that to them and walk them through data analysis if you want to have this particular lab activity be a little more statistical. Again, it really depends on your group of students and your preferences as an instructor. And so that's kind of a quick walkthrough of how the individual modules, the 10 modules that have been provided, are organized. And I think I will stop there.
Great, thanks, Judy. Does anybody have any questions for Judy or comments they want to share? You can go ahead and just say it out loud or put it in the chat box.
Hi, I have a question. I maybe have missed this. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Do you want to say who you are and where you're from, Diana?
Sure. I'm Diana McKenzie. I am from Bay Mills Community College on the shore of Lake Superior. So my question was, just given the brief kind of description that you've given us so far, are these labs all kind of data that we download, or are there hands-on activities provided too?
That's a great question. They are, with the exception of the lab for the first module, which has a modeling clay and melting ice cubes to look at sea level change, and that is one that could be, the instructor could, provide a baggie with modeling clay to send it home with the students so they can do it themselves, or you could do it in your classroom and videotape it to show them, just to give them the results. But that's the only one that it has like the students potentially doing hands-on stuff with stuff. The rest are desktop lab exercises, and many of them are hypothesis testing, and they're working with data sets that you're going to point them to, whether it's National Wetlands Inventory data, and the soils, looking for hydric soils for a site. That might be one lab exercise. So they're doing a desktop, wetland determination, or it might be that they're doing they've got a data set from a water quality testing laboratory, and they need to look and compare it against water quality standards to see if any of these chemicals exceed safe levels. So the lab exercises are for, with the exception of the first one, they're all desktop work.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Hi, Mari Eggers, Montana. I taught for a long time at Little Bighorn College on the Crow Reservation. Currently teach at the State University, but I'm thinking of teaching this virtually to LBHC this summer. Anyway, this is really an awesome resource and a great concept for a course, and I'm excited to see what you put together. I am just wondering, are there resources like to go back into this once a year and update the links?
That's a question for John.
Like many things, it's grant funded and grants run out. So we haven't really thought about that yet. So I honestly, we don't have any current plans to keep it fresh and updated, but that's not to say we couldn't do it. We just have to incorporate that into our planning. But that's a great thought, Mari.
Would copyright allow you to download and archive a lot of these things, or can you not do that because of copyright law?
So for us, so this is federally funded work. So the work that Judy has created is shareable. It's open public domain information. So there's no copyright there. And I'm guessing all the resources that Judy, you accessed are probably fair use, academic use. So, but I guess you would have to, if you're looking at individual resources that Judy's linked to, you'd have to double check those. But typically for academic use, everything is fair use.
Yeah, I just wonder if you get around this being rapidly outdated issue by, downloading everything that you could have permission to download, and making it all centrally available.
Yeah, so we could do that. We could share it on like a cloud folder that's accessible to everybody. In fact, you could even let it be crowdsourced where people can contribute and build on it and so forth. Make it kind of a wiki site. Good idea.
That would be awesome.
One of the
I'd
things,
hate to see it. Go ahead.
well, one of the things that will that might to keep in mind is about using fresh content is when you're at some of these exercises where you have students getting current data on water quality in a stream or flow in a stream or groundwater elevations in a well that you've identified you want to have the class look at. Because those data sets are constantly updated and refreshed, and so if you freeze it with November 2020, and you're teaching this again in 2022, there's new data available to accommodate whatever floods or droughts or circumstances
Right.
might have been going on.
Yeah, I think maybe some combination of the two of having the live links, but also having an archived backup would be awesome.
I'll figure out how to do that. What platform makes sense, but that's a great idea.
John, I think we can maybe post it on the NWAL DRI website. So let's talk about that later.
That'd be perfect.
And yeah, we can send an email to the group if we're able to do that.
Okay. Do you all have access to local data that would supplement or complement this curriculum? I guess this is a question for the group. It's it's hard to find local tribal data, site specific or place based. Do you all have access to that in your teaching?
Yep. We do at Bay Mills.
Yeah, John, I do. First of all, hi, John. I'm glad you're apparently doing well. I have, yeah, you always have to ask nowadays, right?
Yeah.
I have data too that's kind of ongoing, but I have about 5 years worth of surface water temperature data from streams here in the Western UP that my students and I have collected myself. And I'm also sitting on a data set that's near completion from about 150 wells with arsenic data. That's something that's in the works. So my answer is yes, and in my case, it's data that my students and I collected ourselves.
Nice, thank you. Do we want to talk about how you might use this? I think, Mari, you've mentioned it, how you might, teach at Little Bighorn College. Others have thoughts of, would you use this as a standalone 3-unit course? Would it sit within a degree program, or would it be a special topics? Would it be continuing education, extension? Thoughts on how you'd want to use it? Rebecca says she's going to convert it to 4-H. That's awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah, this is Hank Miller at Nebraska Indian Community College. Good to see you, Judy, John, again. I was thinking about supplemental using parts within current curriculum, but we could easily do that as a special topics class too. And yeah, that's kind of where I was going. The other thing with us here is we just did a feasibility study to get to work on a 4-year degree in environmental health. And this class could stand alone on one of our water resource requirements in that 4-year degree. So pretty valuable. I mean, as far as might have different applications we can use it for.
And Hank, would that be as in spring 2021? Do you think it would be that soon?
Well, I think in spring 2021, if I have permission, I'm going to use parts of this within my ecology class and a couple of those things. The feasibility studies has to go through lots of things. So the 4-year program hasn't been granted, but if it is, then we're looking at probably spring 22, probably. And then the special topics is another possibility if there's enough interest. So, but I hope to incorporate parts within several of my classes, I guess, ecology being one, natural resource management, things like that. Environmental chemistry, I think Judy's familiar with those classes. So I think there's a real great fit for using parts and the labs or different things with it right now. That's my thinking right now anyway.
So I would just mention, like within this module 3 that I just used as an example, I was kind of brainstorming how that might be, that particular module or portions of it might be useful across different places within a tribal college context. And it's like, well, if you got a statistics class being offered, the alternative lab activity, which has this students getting groundwater data and looking at how elevation changes, could be a problem set used for a stats lab or statistics class. The water cycle could be part, and the watershed content could be used in environmental science, intro to environmental science, intro to earth science. The Darcy's Law Lab could be used in an earth science class, pretty intro level earth science. Native American Studies class could have some of the case studies highlighted as part of each module to inform a unit on climate resilience or climate resilience planning. If you offer tech writing at your college, you could take some of the assignments from these modules and fold those into a tech writing class to make sure your students are really competent about being able to write about climate issues. And also, I think these modules can help launch undergraduate research projects, because it's going to give your students a chance to get familiar with federal data sets and figure out where the closest weather station data or groundwater monitoring wells with lots of chemistry background, whatever, where those are, and how that can be used to inform questions that they may have for their research projects. And then I think as I was going through, I mentioned a lot of places where there might be extension project or extension program connections.
Yeah, I think this, Hank, again, I think there's a real use for interdisciplinary work, because I'd like to see more of this type of data used in statistics class, our statistics class, and our Native American studies. I think there's lots of opportunities for them to be incorporated in parts of it into that as well.
I wanted to mention, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but gosh, 5 or 6 years ago, Adam Sigler at Montana State did a similar project, but the focus of the course was just an intro to water quality. So a lot of the kind of basic water chemistry and water quality stuff that would be a great complement. Some of those modules would be a great complement to this course, and that was also developed for tribal colleges with USDA funding. And it's a complete, it's a complete package, like this course, with all the resources that you would need to teach it, and it includes hands-on lab exercises. Of course, this was way before COVID. So, maybe what I'll do is just connect John and Judy, connect you to Adam Sigler and see if he could pass those materials on for dissemination, because I think some of those units might be helpful for your intro level water resources courses, or as a complement to this one for some of the water chemistry stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We did a quick survey about the level of interest around these topics, water topics, and there's a high level of interest. So, if it's been a few years since that was introduced, there's, probably a lot of new people on board now, and would be very interested.
Actually, Mari, that content was shared with us when we were early on and we were starting this, and it's very focused on water quality. I mean, it's a water quality class, which is great. And the very final units of this particular course are surface water quality and drinking water quality. Is the Clean Water Act and the Surface Water Drinking Act. So it kind of starts to introduce those topics, and it's a great springboard for the water quality class that was already developed, for TCUs, which is, I think it's about 10 years old. So that one had, a lot of the links in it were not current, but, three clicks on a search engine and you can find where it's been refiled at EPA or moved over to USGS or whatever. But yeah, thanks for mentioning that, because this class is a nice segue for that water quality curriculum.
Okay, so you have it already then?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was shared with us. Yep.
Oh, that's great.
Some of the other comments in the chat box, Wendy said she's looking to supplement an environmental science course. Kathy said special topics and possibly a regular class. Rebecca's going to share it with the partner, a community college partner. Cynthia says College of Muskogee Nation has a required water resources course within natural resource associate degree. The curriculum could be used as a supplement for spring 2021. And then Andrew says you've got a non-lab 100 level intro water resources course that could be used. And this is on the schedule for spring 2021. And you can enhance that course. There's also a 2-credit special topics course called Climate Change and Indigenous Peoples, taught by somebody else. So it looks like that's an opportunity. Those are great. Especially now, everything's remote. I mean, this provides some fresh content to offer. So, I had one question. You know, part of what we want to do here is evaluate how it goes. You know, anytime you introduce a curriculum, you're already thinking about version 2.0, you know, what worked, what could be improved, and so forth. So we'd like to establish a feedback loop for those of you that will actually be using it. But we also want to be sensitive to not burdening you with, you know, an evaluation, a formal evaluation, which will require a lot of your time. So thoughts about how best to gather feedback, evaluation data from you. You know, it could be anywhere from me checking in with you about the middle of spring semester and having a 30-minute phone call, or I could set up a quick SurveyMonkey web-based survey that you could respond to. Thoughts on that?
SurveyMonkey's always quick and easy if you're asking for what would be the, smallest chore among some of those options.
Okay. Rebecca says a survey or a quick call.
I think both are useful. I was part of a NSF REU program, and this summer, because so many people are trying to do it differently virtually, they kind of did a nationwide assessment of these REU programs that we're trying to adapt virtually. And one of the things they did was they had one person who was an evaluator who did a virtual focus group with students in the class. So all students had to do was like show up for 20 minutes. And then we all got feedback from the central evaluator about what our students said, both a formative and a final evaluation. And that was really helpful. And it was, fairly painless for everyone involved.
Great, thank you. Well, sounds like survey for sure. It sounds like, just based on what people are saying and what I'm seeing in the chat box. So, expect something about probably about the middle, maybe 2/3 into the semester, to see how it's going. I know, as part of your teaching, students have a chance to evaluate the course, but oftentimes that survey data doesn't go back to you. It goes to the academic dean or provost. And so I just wanted to make sure we had a separate feedback loop. Got about 10 minutes left. Any other questions or comments or discussion around how you would want to use it, how we can keep it fresh, current? So my to-dos coming out of this is, I think I'm going to look at, right now you guys registered for it, you got a copy. We are going to share it out. We're going to share out this recording to the larger Falcon membership. If people want to have access. There's, we have 13 people on the call. There's about double that registered. So I know there's more interest out there. Some people couldn't make it, but we'll look at how we can maybe upload it to a portal or a shared site so that it's accessible to everybody, and ideas for keeping it current and fresh. And for sure, based on feedback, there's probably going to be another version out there. Alex, we'll work with you at Desert Research Institute to see what makes best sense about making that available publicly. So Judy, any final thoughts? Alex? Any others?
Feedback is welcome any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you've all got my email ID, so feel free to send me any follow-up notes, thoughts, ideas, requests. We'll incorporate that into the work we do. Thanks everybody for your interest, and big thanks again to Judy and to Alex for making this happen. Couldn't have happened without especially Judy. Thank you so much. All right, have a great day, folks. Thanks again.
So.